I honestly thought I was going to give up while I was painting these Wulfen. And I am not exaggerating. When I started to paint them, I did not like how it was turning out. I really didn't have a color scheme. I wasn't happy with the paint job. I just started getting frustrated, and eventually I got to a point where I just stopped painting the model. Instead of forcing myself to finish something I wasn't enjoying, I put him down and I moved on to the second Wulfen. And I'm really glad I did, because these 3 models ended up teaching me more about miniature painting than I have expected so far with my journey. What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Grimdark Journey. Today I want to show you the 3 Wulfen I have been working on for my Space Wolf army. But instead of just showing you the finished models, I want to talk about what actually happened while I was painting them. Because this was probably the most difficult group of miniatures I have painted so far, not necessarily because of one particular painting technique, but because of the frustration I had while working on them. Before starting on these guys, I hadn't painted for about a week because I went on vacation, and I know a week isn't really that long, but when I'm still learning, I'm starting to think, am I going to be rusty? Did I forget what I was doing? And are these going to look worse than models I have painted before? And I think I let those thoughts get to my head before I even really started. This guy, the first Wulfen that I have painted. So that was the first Wulfen that I started painting. And going into it, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't have a complete color scheme planned out. I basically thought, I'll start painting and hopefully the idea will come to me. So sometimes that works, because with the other guys, like my Terminators and like the Space Marines, it just kind of played out that way. But this time, not so much. As I continued painting, I just didn't like what I was seeing. And the more I looked at it, the more frustrated I became. There's also something I definitely did that didn't help. The brush I was using was already split. I knew it was split. I had other brushes, but for some reason I told myself, I'll just finish this model with this brush and then I'll throw it away. And I think that's why this guy, if you kind of look at him, he did come out kind of rough, but that was a mistake. I'm never ever going to paint a mini with a split brush ever again. I didn't think it would be that much of a difference or like that much of a hassle, but kind of was. Trying to paint some of these smaller details with a damaged brush doesn't just made an already frustrating paint session even more frustrating. And eventually I reached a point where I wasn't having fun anymore. I kept looking at this miniature thinking, I don't like this. What am I doing? Am I even good enough? Like, it just had a whole bunch of self-doubt. And that's where I almost made another mistake. I also let one miniature convince me that I couldn't paint these models. Instead, I stopped. I put this Wulfen down, didn't throw the model away. I didn't decide I was terrible at painting. I just moved on to the second Wulfen. Then that decision completely changed the painting session. This is the second Wulfen. I don't know if you can kind of tell, but it looks pretty better. When I started the second Wulfen, I wanted to learn from everything that frustrated me about this one. The biggest difference was that this time I actually started developing an idea. I decided that Russ Grey and gold were going to be the main colors that tied these models together. Immediately, I felt more confident. Instead of randomly trying colors and hoping everything would work, I finally had a direction. And then I got to the axe. This was something new for me because I decided to experiment with contrast paint and washes. I hadn't really used contrast paint like this before. Well, not even like this before, like at all, with my Space Marines and my Terminators. So I wasn't completely sure how it was going to turn out, but that's the part what I'm trying to do with this army. Experiment, try something new, see what happens, and if it doesn't work, then learn from it. This time it actually worked. I was really happy with how the axe came out. That was one of those little moments where I looked at the model and thought, okay, maybe we can actually do this. And then there was the mohawk. As soon as I saw this guy had a mohawk, I knew what I wanted. Red. He's a giant space wolf mutant running around with a massive axe and a mohawk. He needed a little punk rock to him. And honestly, this model was just fun compared to the last one. That's probably the biggest difference between the Wulfen number 1 and the number 2. With the first model, I consistently was thinking about what I was doing wrong. With this one, I was thinking about what I wanted to try next. And that's completely different mindset. And when I finished him, it came out better than I expected. This is the third Wulfen. You can't really see it up close, but I'll do another video of it with my phone. Now I had something I didn't have when I started the project. a plan. I stayed with the Russ Grey and the gold because I like the way the colors for the second model turned out. But this time I really wanted to focus on the shield since it was like the main point of the model in my opinion. I used contrast paint and shading to give the shield more depth. Then I added a gold around the outside to highlight the shape and make the shield stand out. When I did that, some of the gold did get on the shield and I had to repaint with the contrast paint. And even though I liked how it turned out, I feel the first coat was better than this one, but that's okay because I'm still learning. At the end of the day, I still like how the shield came out. But when I was doing the shield and I kind of had the idea, I had the emotions, and I wasn't questioning every decision anymore. I was starting to trust myself, and then I moved on to the hammer. For the hammer, I started with silver, then I added a wash to bring out some of those little details and created more definition. And for the diamond shaped section in the middle, I added red to create a focal point and break up all the metallic colors. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect, but that's not really what I'm chasing right now. I'm just trying to make every miniature teach me something that I can use on the next one. And compared with how I felt when I started the first Wulfen, this was a huge difference. So what did I do? I went back to Wulfen number 1, the original Wulfen, the one I almost gave up on. After painting the other two, I looked at him, and instead of seeing something I hated about the model, I started seeing things I could fix. So I went back. I added another layer of paint in some areas. I used a wash. I cleaned up what I could. And I basically took everything I learned from the past two models, and basically took everything I learned from models 2 and 3 and tried applying them to model number 1. I really wish I had taken a before and after picture, but at the time I wasn't thinking about documenting it because I was just mainly frustrated. But I can tell you I'm much happier with the finished result than I was when I originally stopped painting him. And I'm really glad I didn't give up on that model. So when I look at this guy right here, I see the model that almost made me quit and the model I came back and finished anyway. I think that's probably the biggest lesson I took from painting these 3 models. A bad painting session doesn't mean you're a bad painter, and making a mistake doesn't mean the miniature is ruined, especially when you're learning. Sometimes you need to put down the model. Sometimes you need to try something different. Sometimes you need to move to another miniature and come back later. The second Wulfen taught me things that helped me for the third, and those 2 models gave me enough confidence to go back to improve the first. If I had quit after the first model, I wouldn't have learned any of that. So if you're painting your own army and you get frustrated because something doesn't look the way you imagined it, don't immediately tell yourself, I can't do this. Instead, ask, what can I learn from this? Maybe your paint was too thick. Maybe your brush wasn't right. Maybe the color combination didn't work. Maybe you rushed, or maybe you simply needed more practice. Learn one thing. Take it to the next miniature. Then keep going. Sometimes you don't see the improvements until you put your newest model next to one of your oldest models. So I'm pretty sure, I know what you guys are thinking, in the combat patrol there are 5 Wulfen and only see 3 right here. Well, I'm not finished with them yet. I still have the leader of the pack to paint, but after these 3 meetings, I actually feel pretty confident going into that model. And there's also one more Wulfen, except we have a slight problem. So he came apart, but I'm actually going to turn that into another experiment. Instead of immediately putting him back together and then painting him, I'm going to paint the individual pieces first that I have. One thing I've noticed with fully assembling miniatures is that sometimes there are areas where it's really difficult to brush. Behind the weapon, around the chest, under the arms, between different pieces of armor. So this time I'm going to paint the pieces separated and then assemble the miniature afterwards. So I never really did a model this way before, like painting and then putting it together. So I don't know if I'm going to like it or absolutely hate it. It could be one or the other. But that's going to be part of the journey. If it does work, maybe that's something I'll start doing more often. Doesn't, at least I learned something from it. When I started these 3 models, I was frustrated. I thought being away from painting for a week made me rusty. I didn't know what colors I wanted. I was using a bad brush, and halfway through the first miniature, I honestly wasn't sure I wanted to keep painting these guys. If you ask me now, I'm excited to paint the pack leader, and that's why I'm making the Grimdark Journey. I'm not here because I'm an expert painter. I'm documenting myself, learning Warhammer, learning how to paint, making mistakes, trying new techniques, and hopefully getting a little better with every miniature. So if you're learning too, don't let one bad miniature convince you to quit. Finish it. Fix it. Put it down and come back later if you want to. I mean, if you have to. Just keep learning. Because your next model might be the one where everything finally clicks. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button and subscribe to the Grimdark Journey.